The Wii U is often remembered as one of Nintendo's biggest failures, a console that couldn't get off shelves, had a mediocre library of games, and most importantly, didn't resonate with the audience. But how bad was the Wii U era really? It's easy to remember the hard times, but we can't pretend like it was all bad. In this video, we're going to take a look into the Wii U's history, its biggest successes and failures, and the legacy it left behind. While we can all remember the confusing announcement of the Wii U at E3 2011, Nintendo's journey towards the Wii U began long before that. Let's go back to the days of the Wii, a console that redefined casual gaming and reached audiences never tapped into before. For years, this console dominated the market, and Nintendo wanted to do their best to ride the coattails of one of their biggest releases ever. Of course, Nintendo didn't want to just release a sequel to the Wii, they wanted to push the boundaries of their current limitations. As early as 2008 and 2009, whispers of Nintendo's next big project began to circulate within gaming circles. This new console was envisioned to be a system that is similar to the Wii, but with new innovations involving touchscreen technology. However, this entire development process was initially shrouded in secrecy, and few details were ever released. This period was marked by speculation from industry analysts who questioned whether or not Nintendo could truly surpass the Wii's insane success. Within Nintendo, they had to figure out a balance between keeping the Wii identity versus trying to innovate past it, a debate that would eventually haunt them for years. But eventually at E3 2011, Nintendo finally revealed to us what was only known as the Wii's successor. The announcement unveiled the revolutionary concept of the gamepad, a controller equipped with the touchscreen that promised to offer a parallel interactive experience alongside traditional gameplay. The gamepad was presented as an addition to TV gaming instead of an alternative. Basically, the screen on the pad would act similarly to how the DS bottom screen acted. While the innovation between the gamepad was undeniable, it also caused instant confusion amongst the fanbase. Was this a sequel to the Wii? Was this a new controller? The initial launch trailer made it unclear to the casual consumer what this actually was. The very fact that the console would be named the Wii U didn't help either. It wasn't clearly marketed as a sequel, and Nintendo was historically inclined to name accessories to their console like this. And as nice as it would be to say Nintendo quickly clarified this confusion, it would become the central point towards explaining why this console sold so poorly. In the months following the announcement, industry analysts and fans of Nintendo debated the potential of the Wii U. On one hand, the idea of a dual-screen experience on a home console was fresh and promising. Demonstrations at conventions highlighted creative uses of the gamepad in titles like Zombie U and Nintendo Land. But to the normal consumer, none of these demonstrations mattered much. In some ways, skepticism began to grow even more. Furthermore, the Wii U's hardware limitations became a talking point to those aware that it was actually a brand new console. Comparisons with the upcoming PlayStation 4 and Xbox One revealed that Nintendo was not planning to match the raw processing power and graphical capabilities of its competitors. Instead, Nintendo's strategy appeared to focus on unique experiences over technical superiority. While this approach had worked well with the Wii, it naturally raised questions about the system's longevity and its ability to attract third-party developers who were increasingly reliant on more powerful hardware for their big titles. With all this confusion, Nintendo really needed something to spark interest in the Wii U, however this would never come. And when the Wii U finally launched in November 2012, initial sales were underwhelming. Unfortunately, it wouldn't come anywhere near the initial success of the Wii, and it didn't help that the launch lineup was pretty bad on the first party end too. Sure, they had New Super Mario Bros. U and Nintendo Land, but realistically, these aren't console sellers. There were a good amount of third-party games, but no fans of these titles would purchase a Wii U over any of the other consoles that were more powerful to play these games. Based on the feedback from retailers, the core issue of why the console wasn't selling was the sheer confusion around its nature as an accessory rather than a new console. The gamepad's potential was quite high, honestly, but it seems like it might have been a little ambitious at the time. The Wii's concept was so simple and familiar that jumping to the Wii U gamepad seemed very gimmicky and confusing. Furthermore, early reviews of the Wii U noted that several launch titles did not fully exploit the gamepad's potential, leaving the promise of new hardware feeling largely unfulfilled. Reaction from third-party developers was also not one that would benefit Nintendo. Even before launch, many major publishers had expressed their lack of desire about investing in a platform with such a small install base and hardware that didn't align with industry standards. After launch, these concerns truly became a reality because several high-profile franchises either received downgraded versions or were entirely absent from the Wii U's library. For example, while while some third-party games did make it to the console, they often ran at lower resolutions or with simplified features compared to their counterparts in other systems. Third-party reluctance to support the Wii U further cemented its image as a system that heavily relied on Nintendo's own first-party titles, which were shockingly hard to come by on launch. Although Nintendo's first-party titles around release weren't bad, the absence of those plus amazing third-party support limited the console's appeal in both their own market along with the rest of the gaming world. Following the launch window, 2013 needed to be a big year in strengthening the Wii U's library, and it kind of was. Pikmin 3 was a long-awaited return to the franchise, and it seemed to work quite well with the gamepad. Perhaps it wasn't the biggest release ever, but I think that Pikmin 3 was one of the first legitimately great games on the Wii U. After a while though, Nintendo finally released what they might consider their console seller, Super Mario 3D World. The goal of this game was to essentially take the concept of the pretty successful Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS and expand upon its gameplay. Personally, I think 3D World is a solid entry in the franchise, however the fact that it didn't have its own identity really hurt the nature of it being a console mover. I haven't even mentioned this yet, but 2013 was the year of Luigi, an attempt at bringing hype to the company in dark times. For 3DS owners, they absolutely ate with the games like Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon and Mario & Luigi Dream Team, but for those on the Wii U, they basically got a re-release slash overpriced DLC called New Super Luigi U. Finally, I want to acknowledge The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker HD. This was a really good remaster of the Wind Waker, but it's a remaster, so it's nothing new. By 2014, the Wii U's game library had started to become fairly decent, but it still lacked major names that could get people to really buy into it. Luckily, this was the year that could finally turn things around for the console. Mario Kart 8 was released in mid-2014 and quickly became one of the best-selling and most critically acclaimed titles on the Wii U. The jump from the 3DS game was giant, and the visuals plus the music were truly an accomplishment. Despite the underpowered nature of the console, the game really optimized itself to be the most popular and smooth Mario Kart of all time. This wouldn't be the end of the big names though, because Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U also launched in 2014. While the competitive scene for Smash Bros. Has been mostly dominated by Melee for years since Brawl was not really as popular with the hardcore players, Smash 4 introduced a ton of new generation competitive players to the world. This would help build at least some sort of culture around Nintendo again, albeit Nintendo really never played into the competitive scene much. The additions of Mario Kart 8 and Smash Bros. Should have been much more significant than they actually were, but really it might have just been too late for them to make a difference in the success of the console's sales. Besides this, I also should mention Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze contributing to this year's fairly strong lineup. 2015 was actually really good too. Perhaps the most notable release was Splatoon, which launched in May 2015. For the first time, Nintendo would enter the world of shooters, but not in the way that everyone else was doing it. Since they wanted to keep their image as a family-friendly brand, they decided to make a brand new IP featuring squids battling each other with ink-filled water guns. Building a brand new franchise from the bottom up is hard, but Splatoon absolutely broke boundaries, with its success especially going into the Switch with its sequels. Another game where Nintendo innovated was Super Mario Maker, which was a way for players to build their own Mario levels within different eras of 2D Mario. The hype around this game was massive, and I loved the concept of it. It seemed like the gamepad was meant for games like this, and I'm glad Nintendo actually went ahead and gave us such a fun tool like this. As 2016 came around, the Wii U seemed to be already on the way out. As a result, the games released this year were pretty bad. We got the newest entry to the Paper Mario franchise, Color Splash, which was absolutely torn apart by critics and fans alike. We got another remaster of a Zelda game, being Twilight Princess HD, which was good, but again, it's a remaster. And I guess Pokken Tournament was cool for like a week until I got bored of it. And of course, in 2017, the last major game for the Wii U would be The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, a game that everyone would just buy for the Switch anyway. As a whole, the Wii U's game library was all over the place, and it has really high highs and really low lows. It innovated with franchises like Splatoon and Mario Kart, but after all those big games died down in hype, there was so little for the second half of the Wii U's life. In the months and years following the launch, sales data confirmed that the Wii U was not meeting Nintendo's expectations at all. With sales numbers trailing far behind those of the Wii, many investors and industry experts began to view the console as a failure and a lesson. When you have horrible marketing, poor third-party support, and hardware limitations, your console will not perform well. However, despite the Wii U struggling in the marketplace, it certainly impacted Nintendo's design philosophy. The lessons learned during this period influenced the development of the Nintendo Switch, a console that would eventually redefine hybrid gaming. While the Wii U is often cited as one of Nintendo's biggest failures, features, its experimental nature, and the innovations it introduced, particularly the idea of integrating a second screen, paved the way for future success. In former Nintendo President of America Reggie's own words, it was a failure forward for the company. By 2016, it became clear that the Wii U had reached the end of its life cycle, and the sights were set on the next big console for Nintendo, the rumored NX. This time though, Nintendo took the lessons of the Wii U's confusing marketing to heart. The Nintendo Switch was marketed as a brand new console with its own image. The Switch's design was communicated to be a hybrid console that allowed games to be played on the TV, but also handheld. This was something that had never really been done successfully before, and the concept of it was very intriguing. Aside from the phenomenal marketing this time around, the Switch offered a significant performance boost over the Wii U, making it a lot better to design games for. Don't get me wrong, the Switch's hardware was not amazing, but it definitely had the capability to do a lot more than we expected from Nintendo. Powered by Nvidia's Tegra processor, it was much easier for developers to port games without the need for extensive modifications. This change was reflected in the rapid inclusion of third-party titles. Big games such as Skyrim, Doom, and The Witcher 3 found a home on the Switch, which was a stark contrast to the limited third-party library of the Wii U. While people loved the fact that you could play your favorite games both docked and undocked with the Switch, there was a group of people who were somewhat saddened that the dual screen idea was gone. Nintendo hasn't really addressed this afterward, but honestly, I understand the disappointment. There were a select few games like Mario Maker that did really well with the Wii U technology, and I don't want to pretend like that isn't the case. The Switch's concept is a lot better than the Wii U in terms of practicality over gimmicks, but I still think the gamepad was cool. And I couldn't really find a good spot to talk about this anywhere else in the video, but the Miiverse was also a really cool idea that the Wii U brought that the Switch didn't have. At the end of the day, gamers could now take their favorite titles on the go without compromising on performance, a feature that greatly expanded the console's appeal and market reach. Previously, the 3DS had to have its own exclusive titles because obviously the console games were too powerful, but now, instead of games like Smash Bros having to have two separate versions, you could just play the definitive version of Smash Bros anywhere you want. So yeah, to me, the Switch is an improvement on the Wii U in every single category imaginable. The Wii U era remains one of Nintendo's most challenging periods, a time defined by failures in marketing, hardware limitations, and a terrible culture with their fans. It seems like during that time, all you could hear about was how Nintendo was trying to squeeze people of their money with Amiibo, and even those Amiibo cards. Like, it was really bad to be a Nintendo fan during this time. However, this also served as an experimental time where innovative ideas like the gamepad were tested and refined. While the Wii U's commercial performance was undeniably poor compared to its peers, its legacy is far from a total failure. The lessons learned during this era directly informed the design and marketing of the Nintendo Switch, which went on to define what a hybrid console could be. Ultimately, the Wii U era is best understood as a transitional period, a painful yet necessary stepping stone for Nintendo's ultimate growth. But what are your thoughts on the Wii U's legacy? Let me know in the comments below. If you made it this far in the video, thank you, and I'm trying to hit 10k subs by the end of this year, but almost 99% of my viewers aren't even subscribed, so I'd love for you to help me improve that number. I also have a Patreon in the top link of the description if you want to support the channel. Thanks for watching, guys.